Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditam Astuma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we'll begin off with questions. What questions do you have? If you have a question, unmute your mic, ask the question, and we will see if we can answer.
Hello, Swamiji.
Yes, hello, Philip.
Hi. I've been watching and following your guided meditations over the last few
sorry
weeks.
About that. Yeah.
No, it's so helpful. Could you explain a little bit, run through the format of a meditation session? Because there seem to be, you go through different kind of points along the way.
Okay, so we do conduct a meditation workshop. And during that workshop, we go through the process in a comprehensive way. But I think we have to probably clear up some misunderstandings about what is meditation. Yesterday, I think it was, I gave a thought out. If you want to realize God, then japa, that is repetition of a mantra or holy word or phrase, and meditation will not do it. Love of God, love would do it. But the whole process of meditation is based on a psychological process. Because we are living in a psychological mistake, which we call the world, then to deal with it, we have to use a psychological process. So what is meditation? Meditation is picking up spiritual scenes. And what is not meditation? It is not making the mind blank. So today also I put out a thought which described in a way meditation. And it is like taking a flight, as I'm about to do shortly, above the clouds. You have to have a runway. You have to have an aircraft also. We have a very good aircraft called human body and mind. The two things combined is excellent equipment designed especially to fulfill our purpose. When we say our purpose, there must be a conviction before meditation that there is no aim, there's no purpose like that. When we say purpose in connection with meditation, we mean the local purpose. That is putting ourselves in a present moment, not dealing with the past, not dealing with the future. Why should we disturb the mind with past and future? It's because we have not dealt with problems in situ. So any meditation practice begins with some training. And the training is in your working, waking life. When you go to work, when you interrelate with your family, when you interrelate with friends, and when you deal with your financial environment, domestic environment, social environment, otherwise called difficulties. But they are not difficulties if you deal with them in situ. They don't linger on to a meditation phase. Otherwise, if we have any physical difficulties, or psychological difficulties, or emotional difficulties, or even outside social difficulties, these will all clamor for attention when we sit for meditation. Instead of meditating on God or the reality or the eternal self, you'll be meditating on your arthritic knee, or you'll be meditating on a relationship that doesn't like you. And then you'll be saying, you go into a poor me mentality. That will lead you to depression. And you get up from the meditation. And some people, of course, enjoy going into depression. Some people enjoy the poor me. I'm not saying the English people, but some people. Everybody, or some people, I should say, like to complain. How are you? As soon as you ask the question, you regret you asked it. Somebody says, please sit down, let me tell you, do you have a number of days? When we say, how are you? And somebody says, fine, neither party believes it. Neither party is concerned about it. So how we view the world has an impact on the settlement of the mind. How stable is it? How do we react? Now everybody reacts according to an accumulation of their experiences. The normal kind of reaction, no matter whether you're human or whether you're a virus or a bacteria, remains very similar. You take the information from your environment and you respond to it. But your response is based on your root, that is, your accumulated experience that develops and produces your behavior. Don't ask why you're behaving in this particular way. We know the answer. It's from a storehouse of past experiences. And these just come out. So how to settle the mind? Before you sit for formal meditation, meditation with eyes open has to be conducted. Dealing with problems in situ, with a formula or with a metaphysical approach that understands the world in a better way. Is it a challenge to us? Is it a threat to us? If we think it is, then we will also feel it's coming against me, and then I will feel frustrated, and I will have to deal with it in that accumulation of experiences that I call me. But this is all in the unconscious area. All the subconscious area contains this. We have to take stock of it. You see, this is why we actually start off our spiritual practice in understanding what this world is and my relationship to it by doing this process of Enneagram and Essence of Truth. In dealing with this, we're trying to assess, how am I approaching the world? And the approach that we have toward the world is a repetition of our historical approach. How did we approach it when we were 5? We may have learned something different. But if we haven't learned some kind of training mechanism where we change the reaction of a 5-year-old, then we haven't grown at all. What's the point of all our experiences if we just play the old record? And some of the old record can contain poor me. The past is gone. We have to leave it there. That's the first principle in our philosophical attitude. It's a practical attitude. This last second that went by, I cannot change. I'm broadcasting this live. Supposing I make some error in my speech, I can't change it if it's live. So I have to just leave it, let it go, finished. The future is not here either. So I have to also take this as a myth, is an illusion that never arrived today. The only thing that I find real is here, is now, and even that has gone off. What will I put into it? That is why in the Bhagavad Gita, on the section of Dhyana Yoga, that is meditation, it doesn't begin with any form of sitting. It begins with moral training. Actually, it begins with Karma Yoga. It says, please conduct your life in such a way that it doesn't cause any mental disturbance. And the easiest way to do this is to do something with no motive, without asking why. Why is a question related to the past? Why not? What next? That's the approach we should take. What should we fit into this current second, here and now? And then how should we proceed in a most useful way for ourselves and for others? In dealing with the subject of meditation, in the handbook that we know as Patanjali Yoga Sutras, with its vast commentary by Swami Vivekananda, he tells something, the best way we find to make others happy or to make ourselves happy is to make others happy. As soon as you make others happy, you feel happy. There's a corresponding resonance in me when I behave in a certain way outside. When I repeat a number of mental thoughts continuously going in sequence, something resonates in me corresponding to it. If I repeat a phrase or a sentence, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, and hungry, well, soon you'll be looking for food. I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty, you'll be looking for something to drink. Supposing your mental repetition is, I am unhappy. This is not a mental repetition continuously. It is at moments when unhappiness is there. It can take us by surprise any moment when there is a lack of something. If supposing there's a lack of health, immediately I say, I would be happy if I was healthy. Or supposing I don't have any challenges in life, I would be happy if there were no obstacles. But happiness is an intrinsic quality. It sits within us, as all qualities sit within us. It's not something we have to get from the outside. Please send me by mail order from Amazon some package containing happiness. It's not like that. So before we even sit for meditation, we have to have an equilibrium of mind. See, yoga is like that. We are told that yoga is skill in action and equilibrium in mind. This is something that is worth repeating over and over again. See, skill in action, yoga karma kausalam, is part and parcel of the second chapter already of the Bhagavad Gita. It gives us a completely different definition of what yoga is. Yoga is putting everything into harmony, making a total harmonious personality, physically, psychologically, emotionally, in every single way. So if you do every single action in this way, with great skill, skill means applying the skill that you automatically have, that is given to you from the inside. Developing this in a certain way, your individual way, to fit in harmoniously everywhere, including your local harmony, that is body and mind itself. You may say, what about body? Well, if you control the mind and all the vagaries in the mind and make the waves there peaceful, the body will also correspond to it. We talk about the COVID-19 virus, but supposing your mind vibrates on a high level, supposing your mind is tuned into cosmic mind. Normally it's out of tune, but supposing we make every effort to tune it in on the philosophical principle that there are no individual minds, only substations, branch offices. One mind is only there. We call this cosmic mind. And when we want to understand what is this nature, we have to look at all her principles. And this will enable us to shift our attitude to a different place. Supposing we think that everything is individual, designed to challenge me, designed to threaten me, then I'll be always in a combat situation, never at peace. I'll be in combative mood. And in combat, in some strategic situations, retreat is a necessary thing. There's a very famous example in South Africa in the Boer War. The British, who were less seasoned in terms of bushcraft, they were dealing with these Boers. Boer means a farmer. A farmer knows how to handle a rifle, knows how to shoot accurately, and knows how to use his environment to track animals. The British made their formations in typical square military style. They weren't prepared for it, either in South Africa during the Boer War, and even previously in history, when they were engaged in the American War, the revolution there, they were defeated because the style of military operations was different. In this same way, we have to develop our own military style in order to deal with what's in front of us. if we don't change our formula that we are tirelessly using and we understand it's not working. But of course, the trick is to understand it's not working. You try it, doesn't work. Our habit level says try it again. At some point or other, there'll be a breakthrough, but there won't. The breakthrough comes from a different quarter. With the effort to do something, the breakthrough comes as a corresponding movement from the universe. And another way of saying a corresponding movement from cosmic mind. Only cosmic mind is there. Learning to tune into this declutches all our negative reactions, makes us think in a different way, makes us give ourselves and others a unity of experience. So when we deal with the various aspects of this universe, the energetic aspect, the material aspect, the psychological aspect, yoga as a philosophy reduces it to only one thing, energy, one single energy, nothing more. In the same way, matter is also reduced to one thing. We call it akasha. And also all minds are reduced to one thing. This is called cosmic mind. We call this Hiranyagarbha, that is golden, a golden womb, a golden seed, something of that nature. Something that can expand and grow and develop all the other principles. So how do we view the world? If we view the world like a creation, then we will think of a supreme principle that can rescue us from a difficult situation called a creator. Having created us, he can rescue me. He molding us in a certain shape, he can now take me and put me in a more positive environment. Take me out of a difficulty. Now, this approach has some difficulties because it starts off with the point, I'm weak. And when you look around for a rescuer, you won't easily find it unless you have a direct contact with it. If you just idly think that your business is in trouble and think the government will rescue you, it doesn't work. You have to make an application. If you think that this world is a protected field, then you'll think of the Supreme Principle as a protector. Even that has a difficulty. Lord, protect me. Do you need protection? I need protection. It's not a bad point of view, but it has its flaw. What is the flaw? The flaw is it can drag you down into a point of weakness. The best way to handle situations in situ would be from a position of strength, from a shifting of a position to say, I, poor me, is gone. I am not a defective, weak, single strand of entity that has to deal with a vast world that seems to be hostile against me. This is the 19th century attitude towards nature, making people like Darwin, Charles Darwin, assert, you see, we have to conquer nature because nature is something that is raw, something that is crude, fighting, biting, scratching kind of thing, and it is intrinsically not in our favor. You're only seeing one dimension of it. When you see another dimension of it, a dimension that Swami Vivekananda brings out, at the end of his book on Raja Yoga, we find a beautiful description. Nature's job is done. Nature, our sweet nurse. This is the language he uses. Very different from fighting, biting, and scratching. Something in our favor. Understanding that will be a point of strength. Now, if you think that this world is partly a creation, partly a protected field, but also a play of waves everywhere, emanating from a cosmic mind. Tuning into that cosmic mind, dealing with this play of waves like a kind of drama, like a play. In this way, we play with these waves, and that Supreme Principle becomes something like a cosmic dancer. something like a poet, something like an artist. And we are simply a part of this. Body is a part of it. Mind is a part of it. The two together represent a series of waves. Understanding this as waves is compatible with modern science. Modern science sees it in this way. It doesn't believe it. It only believes it because all the equations tell it. But our gut says something different. Our habit says something different. And therefore our behavior exhibits something different. What has all this got to do with meditation? It's because I come back to my point. Meditation does not begin with sitting. Meditation begins with correcting your life from an optimistic point of view, thinking that there is nothing wrong with it. And therefore, the language is awkward. There's nothing to correct. Dealing with all these problems and difficulties from an optimistic point of view, considering them to be mere obstacles. What is a mere obstacle? Supposing I walk on a road and it's strewn with thorns, then I should put tough shoes on. Supposing I am running, my usual example, running in a 100-meter race with hurdles there, I should learn to jump over the hurdles. Driving on a road that is full of potholes, I should get a four-wheel drive. If there is this famous saying in Ireland, isn't there? It is better to light a candle than curse the dark. But we are engaged in this negative reaction of thinking that we are defective, and the defect or the gap or the hole will be filled from the outside. Technically, this is called desires. Desires in a strong form we call vasanas, passions. So these passions we can't get rid of, but we can neutralize them. And dealing with this neutralizing element will be our moral ethical life. More than just morals and ethicals. It is a life that is built for purity of mind. And therefore we have to see, what is our first reaction? How can we form it? So those who know will remember the 4 R's. If we weren't broadcasting live, I would ask you to tell me what these are, but I'll remind you. The first is your reaction. You can't stop it. It's coming from a spontaneous movement. Something comes into your field, it irritates you or stimulates a reaction of some kind. Sometimes it's a positive reaction. Sometimes it's a negative reaction. Sometimes it's a hostile reaction. Sometimes it's arrogance. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's humiliation or the feeling of that, and you feel embarrassed. Whatever the reaction may be, if it is of a negative type, it should be identified. How do we register it as a negative type? You have to understand these principles that come from Sankhya philosophy that we call gunas. They're not qualities actually, but these gunas come with qualities. They're the intrinsic fabric, intrinsic components and forces of this world. Whatever comes into the mind will fall into one of these categories. Is it predominantly of a pure nature? So that is why you see, in studying the Bhagavad Gita, it picks up on this. On Tuesday, we see how the gunas are characterized left, right, and center. When you do this, it's of the characteristic of Supta. When you do that, it's the characteristic of Rajas. You do that, it's the characteristic of Tamas. At any given moment, we can see what is the condition of the mind, because at the back of it all, we have to be convinced is a supreme thinker, knower, witness. If we couldn't witness it, we couldn't change it. Witnessing what comes into the mental field, we can allow it to come and allow it to go off. The repetition I'm doing Many weeks I tell you the same thing until it maybe gets in. How do you know when it's gotten in? When this becomes your behavior. We have to close the gap between principle and practice. At any given moment in time, we may feel sad or depressed. We can just catch a flash of it. It's to be an astute enough observer to see even a flash of it, because a flash represents a second. And that second is an investment in your unconscious mind. And it has a mobilizing effect on the outer world that you live in. So we should be careful about it. And if we play it as a game, we don't have an extra negative. Extra negative means I try to adjust it. I feel sorry about it. Guilt comes. Some other reaction comes. Catch it in a sporting way, with a sense of fun and joy. Because if we think that this is a play of waves, we can play the game. And philosophy gives us this. Mythology gives us this. Stories give us this. It gives us the expression of Lila Maya, a play of waves that we call Maya. Waves because all the events come and they go. They appear and they disappear. Even the primordial prayer that we said, say, Asato Ma Satgamaya, lead me from the unreal to the real. There's immediately a registration of it. And this prayer is used in interfaith circles. And it's really, oh, that's a beautiful universal prayer. It doesn't have any dogma in it, any doctrine. It doesn't have any biases in it. Anybody of any religion can say it. Anybody of no religion can say it. This is its universality. So there's an intrinsic, unconscious understanding that we are living in a world which is unreal in the sense that impermanent. Impermanent, coming, going, something that flashes. So, and I gave an example yesterday, all examples used previously. Supposing in a room, suddenly an elephant appears. Then suddenly, just as suddenly, it disappears. We'll rub our eyes and register, or at least question, is this anything real? Supposing an elephant is there and suddenly changes into a mouse, then back to an elephant. Same reaction will be there, rubbing the eyes and wondering, is this real? Even if the elephant stands there for a dozen years, we still understand it came in a flash in one moment, and at some point it may also go. The sense of time gives us a sense of change. Sense of space gives us a sense of dividedness. And as soon as we see dividedness, and as soon as we see change, we should register there's a framework. And within the framework, we find all these waves. Somebody asked about Shiva. This is exactly dancing Shiva. Dancing Shiva representing these dancing waves. But they are not separate from the divinity. They are not a creation of waves from a distant, detached creator. So you can take it in one of three ways. You can take it that we were created and that we need to be saved at one point, that we develop a love of God in an independent way as something separate from that. And that will develop into a second approach, that God made the world and entered into it. He didn't go to somebody else and say, please enter into it. He himself enters into it. Having entered into it, he operates from within. And then another approach finally, there, all is he. There's nothing else, no separate thing. Now, all of these are approaches in meditation, assuming we have settled the mind through what Patanjali classifies as yam, control, niyam, observances. We find the mind in this way, and then regulated our seat and our environment. There are 18 preparatory ways of settling your environment. And there are 4 kinds of meditators. All this we mention on our meditation workshop. There is the seeker. the seeker will struggle to meditate. There is the other meditator who will find, I can meditate, but I have to get some guidance for it. And there's another meditator who will say, I can meditate only at certain times. The ultimate meditator will never cease meditating, will always be tuned in, will always tune into the cosmic mind. Cosmic mind is like an electrical current. It's available here, it's available now, it's available everywhere. It has an all-penetrating mode to it. And it is invisible, but it is flexible enough to accommodate anything. And kind enough to be available to here and now where we sit. Catching it, the method of tuning into it, and the sustaining that tuning is called meditation. Meditation is picking up, again, as I mentioned, a spiritual scene. And what is not meditation is making the mind blank. And what is not meditation is thinking that some result will come from it. And meditation is not focusing, that is hitting one thing and nothing more. The mind is supposed to be active. The mind is varied. Is there a process to it? Yes. Now, to get this process, the best thing to do is study all the texts on this process. So when we do the meditation workshop, a textbook for us will be Raja Yoga. Another textbook for us would be Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter. There are also references to the Bhagavata Purana. There are references in many different places. But if we take simply these two texts, or these three texts, we can add one more from a more modern author. The Art of Meditation by Joel Goldsmith is a wonderful book on devotional meditation. What is devotional meditation? It is meditation where you practice the presence of God, putting yourself in God's presence. So which kind of meditation would you like? There is meditation involving mantras, that is, mobilizing, protecting thoughts, invoking the divinity in these waves. There is meditation that is concerned with taking a chosen ideal, developing a love for it, and pouring all your love and feeling into it. But in any event, whatever it is, even non-dualistic meditation that has the approach, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that supreme principle. Or Shivoham, I am that supreme principle. Even this kind of meditation requires rallying the emotions. Feeling has to be there. Yearning has to be there. That yearning stimulates enthusiasm and keeps us going. Don't ask me for meditation if you meditate today and leave it off tomorrow. Steady practice is what is required. Not practice, steady practice. That means regular practice. From the guy using the guidance of a guru, some competent teacher who acts like a kind of conduit for you and for you alone. When I say you alone, for others, of course, but you take it as for you alone, because some private formula suited to you will be used. Since we are all constitutionally different, we all need a different formula. The process then, we can use a kind of checklist, if you will, depending on the kind of meditation. We have to make sure that the environment in which we meditate is a good environment for meditation. It's no good meditating in the shower and say, okay, this is the place, nobody will disturb me there. Meditation where there's a good seat, where there are good vibrations. Good vibrations means an atmosphere that you yourself create. Make it prayerful. These are all included in Swami Vivekananda's first steps in meditation. Then 8 steps are given by Patanjali. The meditation process follows exactly these steps. So the process of yama, self-control, has a very important component. You cannot meditate without self-control of all the senses of information and senses of action, and particularly those connected with the biological genetic survival mode, propagation of the species, and surviving through eating. This is not for one who eats too much or who eats too little, says Bhagavad Gita. Not to one who drinks too much, who drinks too little, sleeps too much, sleeps too little. Somebody who lives a balanced mind, a balanced life, will stabilize the mind. Then sitting down in a seat, neither too high nor too low, says Bhagavad Gita, make sure that some ritual might be there. Normally, most people require some ritual. You can make a ritual as simple or complex as you like. Somebody asked me, I asked them actually, how complex is ritual, puja? They said, oh, it's very complex. You have to learn all the mantras, all the mudras, and sometimes you can make a mistake and it's a disaster. It requires rehearsal and this and that and the other. I said, and what does Krishna say? Krishna says a leaf can be offered, a little water and a flower. Finished. But he takes for granted that you'll put feeling into it. Add feeling and you have a puja. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Because if you do something elaborate with no feeling, it has no impact. There's no potency within it. It's simply just moving lips and simply moving hands. A mantra that is used simply moving lips is ineffective. But moving lips with the impact of consciousness behind it is highly effective. So, yam means the opposite of non-injury, a key text, the opposite of non-control, catching the mind, being prepared to steer it in a certain direction. We're using beautiful scenes stored by the Lord of the universe in your unconscious, since he is responsible for your memory as well as its loss. Waiting, as it were, listening, as it were, for some theme to come up through. Lord, please select a scene for me. When the scene arrives, then use it usefully. So the opposite of ahimsa is love. Start off with a loving attitude. Start off with a prayer that has within it the benefit for everybody everywhere. Everybody everywhere includes you. And then niyam. Take some japa. Part of niyam would be purification. You purify the mind through lovingly repeating God's name in a mantra given to you, something that appeals to you if you haven't got one given, with the idea of invoking whatever you think this supreme entity is, and establishing this within, and understanding that in essence, it gives way and broadens and opens to a position of supreme consciousness and what is described as Brahman, comprising of Sat Chit Ananda. Atman is the same, that it is pure existence, life. You see, when I give the guided meditations, I mention source of life, source of light, source of love. What do I mean? Source of life means there is no other causal agent to do with it. It is life itself. And the evidence and signature of it is you breathing. You breathing, food getting digested, your will to survive, your sense of existence, your sense of ego. I am here, I am this, I am that. Your sense of the reality, which philosophy says is an ephemeral existence, something like a flux, something that changes. So, establishing something that is the source of life in the beginning understands that there's a sense of adoration or thankfulness for the expression of it that we call our life. And then what about the source of love? There is a very good reason why we love other people, even those who are atheists and don't believe God is love or anything of that nature, will still want to have loving relationships with somebody. Everybody wants to love and be loved because our intrinsic nature is the source of this and love itself. Life itself, love itself. And when we understand what is love, love is something that pours, something connected to what we call grace. Grace is a pouring entity. What is meditation? Meditation is simply saying, Lord, please stand there, a kind of liquid entity, a kind of flowing entity, and we say, Lord, please this way, please that way. More, and then as we conduct this, the Lord himself molds himself into all the future scenes. The body itself is God molded in this way, developed from our thinking. One cosmic mind is there, from which all these waves are flowing. I have to say it, repeat it 1,000,000 times until we catch it. And then the source of light. The fact that somebody is able to see means light is there. Light is there, not just on the sun, but light as a source means that which lights the sun, that which lights all things. And the Vedas are very, very careful about connecting things. So the light in the sun is the same as the light in the stars, is the same as light in lightning, is the same as light in the moon reflected, the same as light in that catches the eyes, as same as light that makes the eyes shine. Straight away we have subjects for meditation. We have at least life, light, and love as sources themselves for meditation. So from there, we go into a process. We have to make sure we remove all disturbances. Physical disturbances is called asana. We have to make sure that there are no neurological disturbances. That is called the practice of pranayama. And then we have to make sure that the mind itself is not making a disturbance by elevating it and understanding what is going on with it and making sure we deal with issues which are there, making sure the mind is calm. And at that point, we can then, by a careful step-by-step process, create a chosen scene, a series of scenes with a running commentary. Every word has a corresponding concept. When you join word, concept, and feeling, you have a guided meditation, a game of guiding thought that brings you to a position of poise, where only these qualities of Sat, Chit, Ananda, that is life or existence, Chit, light or consciousness, and Ananda, bliss, or the Taittiriya Upanishad says, Ananta, infinity. Visualizing this, the power of imagination, visualization is all important in all of this, whether it is non-dualistic meditation or whether it is theistic, dualistic meditation. Imagination is a creative faculty and mobilizes all our internal and external forces in favor of us and in favor of everyone. All right, we can finish off. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.